Hey guys, how are things? It's been a while since I've been back on camera. I'm pretty rusty and I guess I forgot some of the technical details of making a video. So what I'm gonna do today is talk about my step 1 experience. I've had a couple of people ask me about my step 1 experience and basically what the process was like getting ready for it, how the exam went, and you know, just tips and stuff. Now, I gotta preface it with I don't consider myself the best step prepper. I kept on looking up people who did really well in order to try and like learn from them as best as possible. So I can list some of the sites and maybe like the links that I use to read up on certain testimonials and stuff like that. But I would recommend taking everything I say with a grain of salt because these are things that I did and I don't even have my score back yet, so I don't necessarily know if they quote unquote worked. I should know that by next week. The overview of the whole thing is that the step 1 exam, which is the exam I took, is the first in a series of exams, basically acts to verify that you are ascending through the successive levels of responsibility on your way to becoming a practicing doctor in the US. USMLE stands for the United States Medical Licensing Exams. So there's step 1, there's a step 2, and a step 3. Step 1 is the exam that's usually done between 2nd year and 3rd year. What it does is it assesses your knowledge of basic medical sciences. So basically everything you learn in the first 2 years of med school is pretty much fair game for the step 1 exam. Step 2 is usually done between 3rd year and 4th year. What that does is it more or less verifies that you are mastering the clinical skills and the clinical knowledge of becoming a doctor in the United States. That's split up into 2 parts. The step 2 is split up into 2 parts, clinical knowledge exam and the clinical skills exam. So the clinical knowledge exam is more or less like the multiple choice exams you probably have in the first 2 years of med school. And the clinical skills exam is more of a SimPat situation where you have to go in, take a history, do a physical exam, make a diagnosis, present them with a plan and whatever test they may need, whatever follow-up they may need. Step 3, the step 3 exam is kind of like the final boss in the video game. This is the exam that you take after your first year of residency usually, and this is the exam that basically says you are in fact qualified to practice medicine unsupervised. Of course, you still have to finish your residency, whatever residency program that you're in, but this basically means that this board exam means that you are in fact capable of being a doctor, able to practice general medicine in the United States. So like I said, I did step 1 and I still have step 2 and 3 to go in the following years, in the coming years. So first things first, the step 1 exam is a very long exam. It's the longest exam that I've ever taken. It's scheduled into 8 hours and it's 1 hour per block. You have 7 blocks for the exam. So that means you have 7 hours of exam time and then you have an hour of tutorial and break time. 15-minute tutorial and then you take breaks usually in between your blocks, so you have a total of about 45 minutes of scheduled breaks. I definitely recommend using your breaks in between blocks. Keep in mind that if you use your unscheduled breaks, it's going to take time away from the actual exam. And in my experience of med school, I like having some time in order to actually review the answers I put down, make sure it was representative of what I'm thinking at the time that I took the question, and just kind of, you know, not to change answers so much, but to just kind of make sure like it is in fact what I wanted to put down in that question. I would definitely recommend that, especially since it's such a long exam, make sure you pack food, make sure you pack snacks, make sure you pack drinks. During those breaks, you might want to have something to munch on, whether it's like a half PB&J sandwich or, you know, some almonds. Don't try and eat a full meal, obviously, because the itis is very, very real, and that's not when you want to have the itis in the middle of the step 1 exam. I know friends who packed things like chocolate covered coffee beans, gummies, Welch's, peanut butter sandwiches, Monster, just to be safe. If you haven't weaned yourself off of caffeine, by the way, I know a lot of us do drink a lot of caffeine during med school. If you haven't managed to wean yourself off of caffeine, honestly, step 1 day is not the day to try and go without caffeine. You don't want a caffeine withdrawal headache in the middle of that exam. It's just not a fun time. You will hate yourself if that's the case. So if you haven't weaned yourself off, feel free to bring some caffeine, feel free to bring some coffee. Honestly, it's much, much better to have a little bit of coffee during over the span of the exam than to have none. Obviously, don't overdo it with the coffee because you get jittery. Nobody needs that during the exam. So from my experience, I set up a period of 7 weeks and I've devoted that to my dedicated study prep. Most people I know do about 5 to 8 weeks of dedicated study prep, and this is people I knew from school, people who I talked to, people from forums and from, you know, testimonials and stuff. Typically that 5 to 8 weeks is usually what most people use, coming from, you know, American schools, coming from Caribbean schools also. 5 to 8 weeks is the average. Now it's good to keep in mind that my fifth term of my second semester of my second year, that's what I meant to say, was basically dedicated to step prep, because we took a pharmacology course, we took a pathophysiology course, and we took intro to clinical medicine course. That pathophysiology course was more or less step prep. And in fact, the exams, after the first exam for that, the majority of the exams for that course were in fact cumulative exams meant to kind of mentally prep you for the step exam. So the final exam for that course was actually 2 days of cumulative basic sciences exams. So I came out of that with a baseline of equivalent of 215 on the step at the end of the semester, which of course is not necessarily the mark that I want to get on the actual exam, but for the sake of the course, it means I was doing well. So give me a baseline going into my test prep of a 215 to build off of. Now during the study period, I've had people ask how many hours a day I spent studying. Most people study anywhere from 7 to 14 hours a day. Step prep, the dedicated period, is exactly what it is named after. It is a dedicated time to study for the step 1 exam. It's not the time to be kind of half-assing or kind of like exploring other avenues during that time. You do want to spend a majority of your day studying. That being said, everybody has different recipes for success. Some people will tell you to do 16 hours a day of studying, which is ridiculous. Some people will tell you to do, you know, 12, 14, 13 hours a day. And other people get by on doing 7 hours a day of studying. There are some people who have done 7 hours a day of studying for step prep, and they've done extremely well on the exam. It's just a matter of knowing yourself, knowing what you need really quickly, and doing what you need for this one exam. You more or less get one shot at the exam, so you want to make sure that you're doing what's important and what's right for you, and not what's right for somebody else just because, you know, you heard somebody else doing it. So if you need 7 hours a day to study, don't feel bad. Do your 7 hours a day. If you need 14, do your 14. I mean, yeah, sure. So like I said, most people do about 7 to 14 hours a day. I personally was doing about 12 hours a day, kind of a little ridiculous. In all of that time though, you do want to try and make some time to eat and sleep and rest. And, I mean, it is possible, don't get me wrong, it is also possible to get 8 hours of sleep and, you know, study and also even watch some Netflix here and there. It's just kind of a matter of prioritizing and realizing that in that period of time, like, there's some other stuff that really needs to go while you're prepping for the exam. Karina and I were in Montreal for 7 weeks. You guys may or may not know that. If you've been following the vlogs, you've probably seen us together in Montreal studying for the exam. We went to study at McGill University damn near every day. We put in about 7 or 8 hours at McGill, come back, put in another 3 to 4 hours by the end of the day. Some days were less than others and some days were more than others. You kind of just feel it out based on how you're feeling. Based on what you're able to complete in a day. You don't, if I wanted to do 14 hours every single day and there was a day I couldn't hit my 14, I wouldn't lose my mind over it. But we wrote a practice exam every week, except for 1 week. I bought all 6 NBME exams. I did the 2 UWorld self-assessments. The 1 NBME exam that I didn't do was NBME 19, and that was because I was running out of time before the week before my exam, before my actual step 1 exam. And NBME 19 is supposed to have one of the worst curves of all time, and I just didn't need to be unnecessarily slapped in the face. So didn't do that, dropped that, did 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, and USMLE World Self-Assessment 1 and 2 the week before the exam, and then wrote the exam. 2 days before the exam, I made an effort to try and scope out the Prometric Center where I'd be writing. I had to come back to Ottawa to write the exam for the sake of like dates and all that. Could have pushed it back, maybe I should have, don't know, we'll see when the mark comes out. Ended up writing the exam in Ottawa 2 days before. Like I said, I went and scoped the place out just to make sure I had an idea where to go, how much time I need to get there, just kind of give myself a really good buffer so I wouldn't, you know, freak out the day of. I definitely recommend doing that. If you can, go a week before the exam, make sure you plan out your day, plan out how you're getting there, when you're leaving your house, how much time you need to get there, what you need to do, how long before the exam you want to be there. I definitely recommend being there at least 15, 20, frankly 30 minutes before the actual exam, so that when you get there, you can kind of calm your mind, take deep breaths, you know, meditate, say your prayers, get into a really good headspace, and then go in and crush the exam. The night before the exam, I'm gonna be honest with you, I tried to get some sleep, but honestly, it was one of the worst sleeps in my life. Literally one of the worst sleeps I've ever had in my entire existence on the planet of the Earth. I ended up, I got to sleep at about 11:30, woke up at about 1:30, couldn't sleep again until about 4, tried the whole thing, meditate, pray, warm milk, you know, made myself a little mantra that was really good. I don't even remember what it was anymore. And I couldn't sleep, couldn't fall back to sleep until about 4:30, and I had to be up in another 2.5 hours. Fortunately, that entire week and the week before that, actually, I had been doing a really good job of kind of keeping up with a healthy sleep schedule. So I wasn't sleep deprived going into the exam, just the night of, I was full of angst and just could not sleep to save my life. The morning of test day, I came in pretty confident, honestly, in spite of not sleeping very well. I had a kind of like a buffer of sleep hours, I guess you could call it. And I tried to carry that confidence with me throughout the exam. I ended up having time during each block to review my questions. And like I said earlier in the video, I really like having time to review questions because it gives me a chance, not necessarily again to change my answers. I usually don't change my answers, but it gives me a chance to make sure that when I put an answer down, it's actually reflective of my thought process for the question. And I try to make sure that I actually read through the question the way it needs to be read through and in thorough detail. Because you know, there are those questions where you think you know everything's going on and the last line throws you for a slight curve that you just kind of miss the details. So I just want to make sure I didn't miss any details. That being said, as much as I was confident, there were a few gimmies in the exam that in retrospect have haunted me a little bit. There's one particular question that came down to Listeria and Mycobacterium, and it's really, I'll be honest with you, it's really frustrating looking back at that, knowing that I know the answer and I knew the answer, but I just forgot the detail in the moment and I just mixed up two ideas. And I think there were at least 2 or 3 gimmies that I think I may have squandered. But you never know. This exam, the way it's set up is that you can go in there, come out feeling terrible, and it can turn out pretty good based on the curve, based on experimental questions, based on, getting ones that you didn't think you got. So we'll find out. I should find out next week how the score went. I felt terrible coming out of it, if I'm being fully honest, only because I was dwelling on the fact that there were some of those gimmies that I lost. There were points that I felt like I should have had, didn't get them, and hopefully didn't lose too much in some of the other spots. But I'll let you know once the score comes out, and that'll be essentially the part 2 of this my step experience, if you want to call it that. So that was it. That was my experience for the exam. That was how the exam went for me. Like I said, I really did try and sleep pretty well in a few weeks before it. I really did try and make sure I was prepped and ready the night before the exam. I tried to make sure that by the time I got into the exam, I had given myself time to get into a good headspace. I gave myself time between breaks to kind of breathe, to relax, to slow it down. And it's been good to get it over with. My last piece of advice to you, if you're taking it soon, once you finish, just go do something completely unrelated to school for a while. The very same night that I finished my exam, a couple friends of mine from high school, we all got together and we went to a cottage about 45 minutes away from Ottawa. Didn't have time to think about the exam, did my absolute best to get away from it. Didn't have Wi-Fi, didn't have data service, didn't have internet, couldn't check my scores, couldn't check my marks, couldn't check emails if I wanted to. And I mean, they weren't sending my scores out then anyways, but I was like, you guys need to send the score. Definitely, as soon as you're done, go get a drink, get some friends, relax, enjoy the fact that you just cranked out a grueling 7 weeks, 8 weeks. It's a grueling process. So you need to rejoice, celebrate that regardless of how you feel it went, because that's the dedication alone to do something like that is really impressive. So hopefully this video helps you guys a little bit in terms of what to expect, in terms of how it's gone for some other people. I'm angsty and anxious to get my marks. I really am hoping that it turns out really well the way I want it to. If it doesn't, you'll probably just never see me on YouTube again because, shame. I'm just kidding about that. I'll probably still be on YouTube regardless. Like I said, hopefully it goes really well. And if you guys are writing the exam soon, if you guys have written it and you're waiting for your marks, all the best to you, best of luck, and hopefully it goes amazing for you guys. I will be updating you on everything going on the next little while. We are going to the States for clinicals in the next few weeks. I will tell you how that plays out in maybe the next video. Anyways, for now, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Hopefully this helps. If it's helped you, make sure you share it with any other friends of yours who are in med school, potentially looking to do the step 1 exam. And make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you find me on Instagram, and I'll keep you updated on everything going on. I'll talk to you guys soon. So much love. Thank you.